Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Anastasia Violet Lipske. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting. Unleash your story today. I'm so grateful to have you here today. I am grateful to have you talk about an important topic, one that is important to all business owners and all people, whether you are a employee or a mother, anyone, we do it every day, and that's called speaking. Yeah. And we're going to talk about speaking and also podcasting. There's a lot of people. One of my favorite podcasters is a mom. She's built a thriving podcast blog on YouTube, and she teaches tips on motherhood and household stuff. And you got to be a good speaker to get your message across. So we're going to talk about all of that. But before we go there, I want you to share a little bit about your business. We've been working together for several years. You sent wonderful guests our way. You're AccessSpeakers.biz, and you help people out there get their word out there and get on my podcast. And I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I so appreciate that. Yeah. So I have a very unique business in that I am a speaker's agent, but not a traditional one. So usually in the world of professional speaking, you have people who are speaking and they're getting paid, and they might be able to get an agent to represent them, like a talent agent. And that person would take 20 to 30% of whatever that honorarium or fee is. So that's one type of business, and I have nothing to do with that. Not that I haven't booked paid engagements for some of my clients, but that's not my focus. There are people out there that do that already. What I created is something that there really aren't that many people that do this, and that is representing the free speakers. People who are what we refer to as platform or marketing speakers. They're speaking for free to grow their business, not to pitch their stuff, but to educate. And if you do that well, you do it with integrity, you do it to bless the audience, there's always going to be a certain percentage of people that are going to resonate with you, and they're going to want whatever it is you've got. You know, if you're a widget salesperson, if you just go out there and you educate people as to why they need widgets in their lives, at the end of it, they're going to be like, you know what? Oh my gosh, I need a widget. I had no idea I needed a widget. I see the value in that now. And who are they going to buy their widget from? But the person who just educated them that they like. So that model, that marketing tool has been around for many, many, many years. A lot of people have been doing it. More and more people are catching on to it. They see the benefit to it. But if you want to do that, you got to do the work yourself. You need to find the opportunities to speak, promote yourself, take care of all the details, those things that isn't necessarily the highest and best use of your time. In particular, if you're a busy business owner, if we want to embrace that E-Myth mentality, we need to stick to our brilliance and outsource anything we possibly can to someone else. So there really hasn't been many people that can help people other than maybe a VA, which is great. But if they don't have a lot of experience in the speaking world, they don't have the connections already. Like I've personally booked more than 1,500 speaking engagements. I have connections now with groups that trust me implicitly. You know, they'll just give me their calendar and say, here, you know, book whoever you want, because we know you're not going to book someone who's not a good match for us, because that'd be the kiss of death to my business. So there's a benefit to something like that. It doesn't mean that it's impossible. And I help people get themselves booked too, because I'm not a good fit for everybody for representation. And therefore, those people I can help through my consulting and just educate them on how to do it themselves. But more importantly, how to brand yourself so you're more likely to get booked. So that's kind of where it started. And then the podcast guest bookings, well, that came as a result of the pandemic. So if you can imagine, my business as a speaker's agent came to a crashing halt in March of 2020. That was a really bad month. I lost my business overnight.
Wow.
Every single thing that I had was canceled. And in the beginning, if you remember, we didn't know everything was going to go virtual.
Mm-mm.
Okay, everybody was just like, we're just dead in the water, like all speakers everywhere, just
Yeah.
dead in the water. There were some groups and organizations that already had a hybrid or a virtual platform, but anybody who was doing in-person speaking, they were grounded. And I then had a choice. In fact, the only other free speaker agency that has a similar business model to mine.
Yeah.
She was out of Dallas, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she shut down in COVID. So and
Mm.
she and I, we were connected. She'd refer
Yeah.
people to me and stuff like that. And she was just like, no, done.
Yeah.
I decided to embrace the pivot word of
I
2020
love
and start
that.
booking podcasts instead.
That's great.
Keep my
And
ground as speaker speaking,
yeah. And
you know?
what's great about that is there are so many ways to get out there. If you can't get out of the house, I heard about this one guy who had become hospitalized and could not walk and continued to thrive in his business from a hospital bed, taking
Mm,
speaking gigs and doing podcasts from a hospital bed. So, I mean, talk about, wanting to make things work, no
yes,
matter what.
yes, yes.
But you mentioned something else. Yeah, people can go out there and get themselves booked on a speaking engagement or a podcast. Now, I myself have done probably about 1,200 interviews over the past 10 years. And so now people say to me all the time, where do you get all these awesome guests? Well, at this point, I have wonderful agencies like yours who just fly on my
Thank
way.
you.
I get
Mhm.
so many great people in my inbox, but it wasn't always like that. So what
Right.
I remember doing in the very early days is going to some networking events. And I think people don't realize that even if you don't have a huge network yet, going out there and meeting someone and saying, here's what I have. I don't have a huge audience yet, but we do have people in your industry that listen, maybe 50 or 100 people in my podcast. And, most times I got a yes more than a no. It's just
Mhm.
being okay with getting out there and asking, but it is a lot of work. And like you said,
Yes.
it's better spent if you're a business owner outsourcing and just focusing on your genius.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And people need to be very careful that they don't look at a potential, say, podcast and think, oh no, they've only got so many listeners or whatever. They seem like a real small show. If it is a good quality show and you resonate with that host
Mhm.
and they're professional, like all those things, they're consistent.
Yeah.
And these are the things, because I'm going to jump ahead of something
Yeah.
really,
Yeah. Go
just
for
my
it.
little tips. When a person is considering a podcast to be on, some of the key things that they want to look for is how long they've been around,
Mm.
how many shows they've done in that time period, how consistent they are in their shows, and first off, do they have guests? Because there are so many people that will send their pitch. I call
Mhm.
them proposals. We propose our clients, but there are people pitching themselves left and right and not even noticing that these shows don't even interview guests sometimes.
Mm.
Now, there's a lot of different ways that a person can research, good old Google, of course. I would say of the podcast directories, that the one that I like the most is Listen Notes.
Mm.
So I usually will go into Listen Notes. So it's listennotes.com for anyone who's not familiar with that. You can go in there and you can look for a host. You can look for a person that you resonate with, that you think would be on shows that you want to be on.
Yeah.
Find out where they've gone and
Mhm.
approach those shows. You can do keyword searches for your subject matter, whatever it might be. You can do all that in
Mhm.
Listen Notes. But when you find a podcast that is intriguing, you can look at all the different things, look at the website, how they promote themselves, etc. But the golden standard for a brief version, or clip notes version, if you will, about a podcast is, for me, Apple Podcasts. Because Apple
Mhm.
Podcasts, right off the bat, you've got the image, you kind of
Mm.
get a sense for how professional they are. There's a description right underneath that tells you a little bit about the show. Make
Mm.
sure you're a good fit. Don't waste
Yeah.
your time or their time if you're not the right person. Just
Mm.
shake the dust off your sandals and move on. There's more than a million podcasts out there, so
Mhm.
you'll find what you're looking for. But then off to the right hand side, you can see ratings and reviews. So how many people have reviewed the show and what the average reviews are. And if you scroll down, you can see what people have written about it. One thing I do want to toss out there, just so people know,
Mm.
if you're looking at a show and they've had 0 reviews
Mm.
or very few, and yet you see quite a few of the shows that have been done, find out where they're located. So again, back to listen notes, one of the things that they'll list about each podcast is where the podcaster is, the host.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in another country, you're not going to see reviews from that country. So I was on a podcast and the host was in Jordan, and that's kind of where his primary business was. That's where his connections were when he started. And so most of his reviews are all on the Jordanian side, not in the US. So I didn't see a lot of reviews. So I just want to toss that out there because a lot of people don't realize, pay attention to what country that host is in. And if you're in a different country, you're not going to see reviews. So, I mean, other than the few people that might be from your country, but you look at those reviews and then you glance at that they're going to list the 10 most recent episodes. Make sure that they've had an episode somewhat recently and look at whether they've been consistent or not. If they've got like 3 months and 1 month and 2 weeks apart and then 4 months, like when you see that, you might want to take a good hard look as to whether that's really a committed podcast host.
Exactly.
But aside from that, don't judge it by its size, because who wouldn't have wanted to be in one of the first 10 episodes that John Lee Dumas did, or Gary Vee, right? You don't know when someone is going to become renowned and own space in the podcast world. You don't know. So go for quality. Make sure that you resonate with that person, listen to the shows, get a feel for them, because let's face it, this is an energetic thing. We all connect or don't connect. Sometimes you just misfire with somebody. You don't know what it is. You don't know if maybe they remind you of someone you didn't like, or you remind them of someone they didn't like. And so their energy's off. But you can get a feel for them by listening and see how they roll and make sure you're going to flow well with that, because being on a podcast that it doesn't roll well will do you more damage than not having been on one at all.
Well, I'll tell you, Anastasia, I was on a podcast many years ago where it was a shock jock type podcast, and they were cursing and saying all sorts of sexual innuendos. I was like, I didn't catch most of them. Poof, right over my head. But it was very uncomfortable, and maybe less for them. But I was like, this really doesn't match my brand either. It is not the image I want to put out for myself or my biz. Now, you mentioned something else very important in the beginning of our conversation, is often being a speaker just to build your brand, build your business, and educate, give freely to your to the audience, to the world, your gifts, so that they can let, oh, hey, she has something out there. Let me go check out her website, see what else she has to offer. Is a great format for just beginning to build and to market yourself. And here's something that's a pet peeve of me. People always say when they're an agency or whatever, what would you like from me? I notice I've been sending a lot of people and you're ignoring them or not getting back to me. I get a lot of agencies or individuals who will send big blurts, about 10 paragraphs of blah. And I'm like, I want to see at a quick glance, what do you want to talk about? What do you have to offer to Savvy? And what are you all about? But a quick headline, some questions, perhaps topics, so that I can quickly see it, see if we're a good match. And then, of course, if it does sound like a good match, I go listen to them, go check out their website. But I won't even go further. If I just get a 10-paragraph email, I'll have to get rid of it. I don't have time to check it out and keep going forward. My time is limited.
Absolutely. I wholeheartly agree. And I think the other thing that I would hope that you would agree is that when you start out your proposal and you're offering yourself, that you right from the get-go make it clear that you've done your work, right? You've done your due diligence, and that you can speak to that host and say, I feel I would be a really great guest on your show because, and I especially really resonated with Sally Smith in episode 239 when she said XYZ, because I speak about something similar, but from a very different viewpoint. And I feel like me being on your show is going to supplement what she already said. So you then let the host know right off the bat that you have actually listened to their show and that you bring value. You're clearing through that clutter of what that value is. We then, at least the way that we do it, and what I recommend to other people, is that then we share a brief bio about our client. So you have a little establishment as to their credibility, like how are they qualified to speak on whatever that might be. And then we might have some just key topics, very brief, or maybe say 5 sample interview questions. But then what we'll do is we'll attach a document that has 15 sample interview questions. We'll attach a one sheet with more information. We will link to all the previous podcasts that they've done before. So if someone wants to go further, the information's there, but as far as text that you're looking at when you first receive it, it's not quite as long. So
it's great. You guys do a great job with that. But I recall people, individuals or whatever, saying, how come I never got a response? And if I get 60 emails, and I know some other publishing houses or other places may get even more than that, they have to be able to stream through it. If they have an assistant or whatever, go through it. They need to be able to flash to see, is this going to serve our audience or not? So that would be the best way. And one thing I've gotten from a lot of people, well, I don't want to give all the bread away, all the goodies. I want to, not give too many free things. I want it to be more about, well, what can I get out of this? I have a big event coming up. And I said, listen, it's like going on a first date. You would never say to someone that you're going on a date with for the first time, so when are we getting married again? Next week, perhaps? No, they'd go running for the hills. So, I mean, a podcast, you're just getting started. You're, getting your business out there. You'll want to come, like you were saying in the beginning of our conversation, from an educational standpoint, not a take, when do I start getting paid for this? Because everyone out there, really, honestly, the audience or the potential clients, really, they don't care about you as much, no offense. They care about, what can you do for me?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this has been great. We could go on forever, but I want everyone sitting here who's thinking, oh my gosh, I could totally use full access service and get my myself out there podcast wise or speaking wise. How can they find out more about you, get in touch with you guys? How can they do that?
The easiest thing, and this is, by the way, something I recommend for anyone who is doing speaking, especially virtual speaking and or podcast guesting, is have a hidden page somewhere or an unpublished page that you can direct people to, because it makes it so easy. So if anyone would like to receive a free ebook that is about using speaking to generate influence, awareness, and clients, and by the way, though it refers to speaking, almost everything applies to podcast guesting as well. All they need to do is go to AccessSpeakers.biz/thank-you. And in there, there'll be a little sign up thing to get my ebook. I will briefly mention the consulting services that I offer, a little bit about my monthly Q&A. It's a free Q&A that people can come to and pick the brain of a speaker's agent. All that's just on that one page. So as far as show notes, that's really all that needs to be there.
That's perfect. Anastasia, I just have to thank you again. It's been a totally fascinating conversation. One, I'm hoping piqued the interest of our audience, whether you're a business owner or not. You can get out there and communicate more efficiently, speak more efficiently. And I know that Anastasia and her staff could totally help you. So go to AccessSpeakers.biz/thank-you to get your free gift. Thank you so much, Anastasia, for coming today.
Thank you, Christina. It's such a pleasure to finally get to talk with you one-on-one after
I know,
all the time
me
we're working
virtually.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.